The illustrious Jabba bids you welcome. I'm going to regret this.
I'm Pete Mitchell. He's Peyton Jones. And this is the Church Planter Podcast, brought to you by Church Planter Magazine.
You know, when I have a large project at home, sometimes it makes sense to do it by myself. At other times, I actually save money in the long term and have a much better solution if I use an expert. It's really not that much different with church planting. Church planners who focus on building their core team and actually planting the church and partner with portability experts like Portable Church Industries hit the ground running. Yes, you may have to raise more funds up front, but let me tell you something. If I could go back in a time machine and do one thing different in all the churches that I planted, I would go back and have invested that money in Portable Church and all of the super cool kit that they give you to make the volunteers and their lives much, much easier. Trust me, your volunteers will feel invested in, and they're going to give you more of what they got. And that time where people are setting up is going to be a time where it sets the atmosphere for you to thrive. If you're thinking about launching in the next 6 to 36 months, we encourage you to check them out at portablechurch.com.
Calm down, diddly 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 diddly. They did their best, shoddily diddly diddly diddly. Gotta be nice, hostility diddly diddly diddly. Ah, hell, diddly ding dong crap.
And you're listening to the Church Planter Podcast. I'm your host, Pete Mitchell.
And I'm Peyton Jones.
He's not a host. He's just Peyton Jones, just on the podcast for the fun of it.
Yeah.
And this is lucky episode 251. I went back and listened to 250. I liked that episode.
Which one? 250?
Dude, what are you doing? Why do we even start the podcast? You're clearly like, I just got an email over here, and this is more important than the podcast that we're recording.
Hey, you do that too.
I do.
Saw you many a time doing that. Let's be honest.
But
you do it.
I'm
you
slyer at it. Yeah. So,
250?
251. Thank you. We've already moved past that.
This is 251.
Yeah, this is 251.
Yeah. Which episode did you say?
You know what? You were in your own little world answering emails. I'm moving past that conversation.
Okay. All right. Yeah. It's painful now.
If you are joining us for the first time, that's all I got to say to that. We do a little something we like to call Smack Talk. This is where Peyton and I get to catch up on each other's week, and you get to be a part of that. And then we get into our church planning goodness. Today's topic is going to be
what to do when your church planning partners leave you high and dry.
You know, I still think you're using the mic on your headphones.
Oh, really?
Tap the mic.
Hold on.
Tap. Yeah. See, we hear nothing.
Are you serious? It's not working?
I'm like,
calm down.
I'm like, wait a second. He's talking into a nice looking mic there, but his voice sounds like he's using his Apple headset.
Oh, hold on. Let me check.
Are you going to make it velvety?
Input. Oh, yep. There we go. Okay, now try this.
Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. Now you got some.
Definitely better sound. Yeah. Hot date with Candy. Hot date with Pete. Yeah.
Hey, this is Lance Ford, and you're listening to Hardcore Church Planting with the two greatest metrosexual hosts in church planting world that you'll ever meet.
I'm Brian Broderson. You've been listening to Pete and Peyton, two guys that definitely need surf lessons.
It's true. I need surf lessons. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, man, I live right next to the beach. I definitely need surf lessons.
So today's topic is
what to do when your church planting partners leave you high and dry.
Organized crime.
But first, we're going to have some smack talk.
Yeah, so I don't want to take up smack talk like I did this last week talking about going to the gun show. So,
well, I mean, we shouldn't talk about the same thing. That'd be boring. But
I got to tell you, though, that's all I want to talk about because this whole week's been gun week for me. Guess where I'm going as soon as we get off the podcast?
Are you serious?
I'm going to the range.
It's like I used to make money back before I had guns.
No, you don't understand. I've been making more money since I've been going to the range because I'm out of my business. I let my peeps take care of everything and I'm not there to screw it all up. So
nice.
I know I make more money by going to the gun range.
Maybe that works with church planning. I actually do think that there is a bit of truth with that. Like, so I would go back to America every year when I was planning in Europe. And the first year they were all freaking out. They're like, like we didn't know if we could do this or do that. And I'm like, okay, I've obviously not trained and empowered this team enough. So I don't know, guys, like it's not my church. Just do whatever in the heck you want when I'm gone. You're not going to break it. Next year, boom, right? And then when I started pulling out, and this always happens when I pull out of a church, people really start getting activated, even more so than when I was there. And my whole thing is activating other people. But I've learned after a while, like, I just need to get out of the way. What are you reading? What are you looking at? I caught you. See, I can see you.
This is what I'm looking at.
I love you, man.
I'm trying to find the right sound clip to go with what you're saying. I'm actually working on the podcast.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah,
too.
Sure it was.
Yeah.
So tell me what's been going on.
Lying.
What's been going on in your life since Monday, which is when we recorded our last podcast?
Well, I'm getting old. That's for sure.
Why do you say that?
Because I look in the mirror. I'm forgetting things. I think we've talked about that.
Good call.
So,
good call.
Plus, there's an old guy in the gym when I'm working out. Like, he's there every day, and it's like he gives me the hey, like, good to see you, other old guy. Kind of like.
So is this like Volkswagen owners?
Yeah.
Where you got to wave to each other on the freeway?
I was going there. It's just like that. It's exactly. It's like we have this thing now. Like, hey, we're the two old guys in here trying to reverse time. Rad.
So since apparently you don't have anything to share in Smack Talk, I'm taking over Smack Talk.
But you can't talk about guns today.
Dude, I have gone full gun nut. That's all. I've gone full gun nut. I talked to Dan Sams yesterday and I'm like, dude, I'm full gun nut now. I literally yesterday, I bought the most manly thing an American man can buy.
A barbecue?
I bought a do-it-yourself gun kit so you can build your own gun.
Wow.
It's called an 80%.
Do you mean like a Lego, or do you mean like you smelt down ore and like?
I mean, like in America, it is 100% legal for you to build your own gun, and it is unregistered, unserial numbered, on everything. Totally legal if you do it yourself.
I still think we need to have ninja school. We need to open a ninja school.
Yeah, get off your ninja school. We're sticking to guns.
No, dude. So, ninja school is a way better time.
I bought the kit, man. They do. It's called an 80%er because the way the ATF looks at it is it's either a gun or it's not a gun. It's either a gun or it's a paperweight. And so they classify these as paperweights until you finish it. So you and I were talking about this yesterday that really it would be so cool if it was like Judge Dredd where you had where you could talk to the gun?
Smart gun. Yeah. Cause before the call, Pete goes, Alexa, turn my office lights on. And I was pretty amazed. I was like, dude, like she's working your house. Obviously I live in the Stone Ages. My house is built in the 50s.
But I told you the reason why I have that in my office. It's because the way my lights are done in here, it's ridiculous. It's the only room that Alexa controls.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it, man. I had a bunch of lights on my bookshelves that illuminated each one, and I had like 15 bookshelves in my old office. So I had to go and like flick, 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 flick. So those lights never went on and never created that. If I could just walk in and be like, Alexa, turn on my lights. Boom.
Yeah.
You're red.
Yeah.
But I did want to
to say that, Judge Dredd, man, he had the lawgiver.
Yeah.
Right. That was the name of his gun. And he would talk to it. He'd be like, hey, shoot rockets at those people. Hey, stun that person, or hey, blow that person away.
Dude, I loved it when, USA Today, after that, the shooting in Texas at the Texas church, USA Today said, this is what the gunman's gun looked like. And then it said, they'd had a pre-done video made that somebody got USA Today. Like, they gave them false information. It was to gun people, it was hilarious. So because Dan Sams is the one who shared it. And he's like, I want to do this so bad. Dan Sams is the guy who's in the Platinum Bible Inner Circle, and he is our resident gun nut. So, they're like, here's an AR-15 with all the possible attachments. I kid you not. One of the possible attachments that they said you could put on an AR-15, you know how you could have like a bayonet?
Yeah.
On the military version, you can't have it on the civilian version. They said you could have a chainsaw.
What?
They had a video with an AR-15 with a chainsaw underneath it.
You know you're going to get that.
Well, Dan Sam's like, I want to make that because it's not real. But someone got USA Today, and then they had to put all these disclaimers. We're not saying this is true. We're not saying the gunman had a chainsaw underneath his AR-15.
That's rad.
And I was like, you guys are idiots, man. There's no chainsaw attachment for your AR-15.
So here's the thing, right? And this is where I was going with the lawgiver. Because there is no easy answer, with the Second Amendment. There's no easy answer. If you tell people we're going to modify it for everyone's safety, then everyone freaks out because they go, here comes government taking away our guns, which was, on and on. Everyone knows the arguments on both sides. And, but like the lawgiver, we have smart everything. Why not a smart gun? Why not a gun that is encoded to your fingerprint, just like my phone is now? And so no one but me, like my kid, if I own guns, can't get into my gun collection and take it and go blow his friends away. Number two, it would be rad if the gun could, if there was something in guns where they could profile that kids never get shot, that there's like a profiler, kind of like the Terminator. I know I'm going sci-fi now.
What if the kid has a gun and he's pointing it at you?
Well, we talked about that. There has to be a fail-safe in case all children suddenly turn evil, but you still can't shoot kids. That's just a no-go area, Pete. You can't even go there. All children may turn evil one day. You contest that all children already are evil.
You know what's funny is I was actually watching a documentary yesterday on the SAS, the British Secret Air Service. Is that what it's called? Secret Air Service? Secret? Is it secret? Or
I don't know.
You're in Britain. Come on, man.
The SAS?
Yeah. What's the SAS stand for?
Special
Air Service. There you go. Not secret. Yeah. Special Air Service.
Yeah.
So, it's a great series on Amazon Prime, and me being in full gun nut mode, I wanted to watch it all. And it was really interesting watching these guys who've gone into a lot of battles, right? I mean, a lot. And this one guy brought up the whole kid thing. Cause, they're fighting in, I can't remember, where were they doing the one that they were profiling, I think was, Mogadishu or something like that. I don't know, something like that. But he was just like, look, dude, age and gender has nothing to do with it. You got a gun and it's pointing at me, I'm taking you out because you're a combatant. And I was like, man, no wonder these guys are hurting so bad when they come back because, you just can't get that stuff out of your head of what you have to do. Now I realize it was, your friends could die if you don't take care of stuff, but man, it's gotta be rough.
You know who you remind me of right now is Walter on, The Big Lebowski.
Why?
His buddy that has the fishing vest and the big orange sunglasses.
No,
it's John Goodman's character.
Okay, that's all you had to do was say John Goodman's character, because he was nom crazy, dude. He was like, Yeah, I remember that.
That's how you remind me. I'm gonna start calling you Walter whenever you talk about your guns.
Dude, I'm telling you, I've gone full gun
Hey,
nut.
it was a nice rug, man. It really tied the room together.
That's like the only line I've ever heard from you on that movie. It must be your favorite line of all time.
Well, it is. It's the one that he repeats.
And then you're like,
quoted that.
And then
that's
you're
a
like,
hidden Easter egg in Church Zero.
Yeah,
by the way.
you're like, yeah, no one in Church Zero knows that line. I pulled one over on everybody. I'm like, dude, I know what that's from. It's the Big Lebowski. Come on.
Well, okay, so people that like movies get it, and I've had a few people go, hey, like, oh, dude, I caught that. That was rad. Most people, they don't. But I did put on there about team leadership. I put the quote where he goes, hey, remember the, I can't remember what, like the Berkeley 6 or whatever. He goes, that was me and 5 other guys.
Oh, man, that's a great line. That is. Yeah, so, dude, I'm telling you, I'm going to be the most manly man ever when these 80%ers come in and I end up making my own guns. I'm going to go from like no gun person to I got an arsenal. I was looking at gun safes yesterday. Gun safes. I already got one and it's almost full.
Wow.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
So, okay. So I got a question since, we haven't talked. I keep noticing like we haven't talked about pop culture in forever. Like we haven't talked about like TV. We used to talk about TV shows. We talk about Star Wars, but we haven't talked about
days away from that one, baby. Days away.
I know. So Walking Dead. We haven't talked about Walking Dead in forever.
Have you been watching this season?
Yeah, but I don't think it's that great.
Oh, dude, I've loved it. It's been my favorite one yet.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah. But I know most people don't like it. And
they're doing this weird artsy fartsy garbage right now.
About? They're like blowing everyone
They're doing
up.
all these weird like out of sequence and like the writing and the lines have been so dumb. This last week, I looked at my wife and she looked at me and we're like, come on. Some of the lines have been so dumb. Some of the action's cool, like that they're taking it to Negan. That's great.
Dude,
but
that's all that matters.
Dude, writing's been terrible.
I don't know. I don't even know what to say to that because I don't really pay attention to what they're saying. I pay attention to the zombies.
And the guns. Let's be honest.
Well, I am checking them all out.
By the way, if you're new to this podcast, we don't talk about guns a lot. This is new. This is Pete's new Tom Vu collection, so we're going to talk about it.
But from going forward, just know every episode will include the Gun Minute with Pete Mitchell.
Yeah, we should probably limit it to a minute. I'm just saying. For those of us that aren't into guns, it's pretty boring.
If you're not into guns, it's because you haven't gone to the gun range. And all church planners, if you come to Southern California, I am taking you to the range.
If it's like you're the gun Calvinist now. No offense to Calvinists, right? I come from a Reformed background, but it's like when an Arminian meets a Calvinist, and the Calvinist is super into Calvinism, and you're like, oh, I don't believe in Calvinism. The next hour and a half is going to be him telling you why you should believe in Calvinism. Like that's, and that conversation can play out a million different times, a million different days, and it never gets old to the Calvinist.
What's funny is
like, stop, shoot me now. Pete, come over here with your gun.
What's funny is this is how I'm making friends. Like I kid you
I'm
not.
So jealous. Like I said last week, I'm jealous. I used to be now I'm like left out, man. So you got your new.
I have invited
friends.
you to go to the range since day one. I'm like, dude, come to the range with me. And then you come up with some excuse.
You and all your foosball friends. but mama, I like the guns.
I'm just look, when the zombie apocalypse happens, you know who's safe and who's not. You don't go run into Peyton in the zombie apocalypse. You come run into Pete. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, you've never seen me with a baseball bat. That's all I'm saying.
You know, I got to tell you, I love Lucille. I
told you I saw a dude driving down the freeway with Lucille on his handlebars, right?
What do you mean? Like
he was dressed like Negan,
no,
riding a big old fat boy. Yeah. And he had it must have been a rubber Lucille or something across his handlebars.
Are you? That is so cool.
Yeah. I was heading into LA. Of course. Right.
Look, if you're heading into LA, you need Lucille just because you're heading into LA. I mean,
especially if you're heading into LA on a motorcycle.
Dude, you know how crazy the city, it's either the city or the county of LA's laws are. like you almost can't even have a pocket knife. Like knives specifically in LA the law is different there than it is in the rest of the state. Like that's how just absurd they are.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Wow. What happened to your mic, man? Now I can barely hear you.
Hello?
Oh, there you see, you got to actually talk into it.
Yeah, I gotta see. I eased back just then.
You did.
This coaxial arm is ridiculously stupid.
You kind of miss your setup in your office, don't you?
I do, man.
Yeah,
I do. But they're doing a bunch of work there, so I'm not going to be working from my office right now.
Man, I'm telling you, this is like the longest remodel ever. When's it supposed to be done?
Well, they've been going in phases, man. That's the problem.
No, I understand. It's a big job what they're doing, but what's the ETA?
We hope that we'll be done with the next phase into February.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
When do you get to move back in?
February.
Oh my gosh!
The reason, yeah.
You know what you should do?
You figure we're kind of gutting the house and
rewiring. You should just turn around and sell the house and take all the money that you're going to make us profit from this.
You know how much money I'd make if I turn around?
Oh my God. That's why I'm sitting here going,
I'd be richer than Pete.
The whoremonger in me is going, I just sell the house. Just sell the house and move. Just run.
Then I couldn't talk to church planners with any degree of respect.
No, you could, because here's the deal. Like Jamie and I, one of the TV shows, you want to talk about pop culture, one of the TV shows that we watch religiously that I don't know that you've seen it. It's called The Prophet. You ever seen that?
Oh, I love that show.
Oh, okay.
Andrea can't stand it.
What?
So she won't watch it with me. But that is way better than Shark Tank.
I thought she liked it.
I love that show.
Yeah, it's like Shark Tank. I mean,
No, she doesn't like it.
Why?
I don't know. Oh, yeah, The Prophet's rad. Marcus, what's his name?
Lemonis. Yeah. So you don't have live TV, so you got to watch it on like Apple TV.
I got to either buy it on whatever or wait for it on Hulu.
Yeah. Okay. So last night's episode, Marcus invests in this company that makes those tiny houses, where it's like on a trailer and stuff. And I'm like looking at Jamie and I go, look, what if we just buy a piece of land out in like Waco, Texas, and let's get a tiny house, take it out there, and boom, we're set.
Don't just get a tiny house. Get one for each of you.
What if I told her that? It's a tiny house for each of us. That might be the trick.
Yeah.
That might
one
be the
for
trick.
you, one for Jamie, and you guys can just go away from each other when you're like, I've had enough.
Look, we could like set the doors up so it's our own little compound, where everyone like comes into the courtyard to hang out.
Yeah,
and talk.
There could be like a central courtyard, outdoor TV, barbecue.
I like that.
A little jacuzzi that meets in the middle. I'm telling you.
Drop in the jacuzzi. Hey, look, in Waco, Texas, apparently it's so hot you need something. So
no kidding, right?
I don't know. I've never been there, but
let's go to the creek in Texas, man.
The creek?
And just go hang out in the creek.
I don't know what a creek is, so
it's a creek. But
I've had a crick in my neck before. I've had those when I wake up every once in a while.
So my uncle, I think I've talked about my uncle in Alabama. He's as redneck as they come.
Did you say Bama? Yeah. My uncle in Bama?
Bama. And he literally, like, I have to interpret for my wife sometimes.
Nice.
He'd be like, because he doesn't have teeth and he chews and spits. He has guns. He has gun racks in the back of his truck, Chevy, of course, and fishing poles in there, and he kills, cooks, and eats squirrel. And he's the real deal. So he has a trout line that he puts in the creek. And he's like, when he talks, it's rad. Sounds like an auctioneer. And my wife will look at me like, what did he just say? Last time that we had been there, he walked in the room, he sees Andrew, he loves Andrew, and he's like, I'm gonna go down and do my thing, you guys go down, you do your thing. He said, I'm gonna go do my thing, you guys go do your thing. And she goes, oh, okay.
What does that even mean?
He was just telling us to make ourselves at home. And he's like, I'm gonna go down and check the trout in the creek line, the trout line in the creek, and it's funny, dude. It's like something out of a TV show. But that's my family.
That's hilarious, man. See, I'm telling you, I think most of the guys who are in Bivo Inner Circle, which you can find all about at bivoinnercircle.com, cha-ching. I think most of where those guys are located, I should be living. Like, I need to be within a 5-mile radius of Dan Sam's because he's a gun nut. Yeah. But even Wyman, who's in, is it Louisiana? Is that where Wyman's at? I think it's Louisiana. I'm like, dude, come on. It's the South. I need to be there. David living in South Carolina.
But you'd be so miserable in the South. Just going from your house to the car, you're sweating like a pig.
Yeah, but you know what? There's no people. There's no people.
There's a lot of people in the South, surprisingly.
No, not like Southern California, dude. Not even
you
close.
You need to go to the Midwest where it's cold and.
I'm just saying, I need to go where Scott Blair lives. I need to go where Aaron Bump lives. I need to go where A. David lives.
Jay
I need
Lee,
to go
man.
where
Jay
Tyrone.
Isn't he in Canada? It's cold up there. That's where you should be.
Yeah, but they don't let you have guns up there the way you do down here. So no, Canada's out. Sorry, Jay. Canada's out. I'll let JB.
He chooses where he'll live.
I'll let Jay be our missionary to Canada, even though that's where he's from. Jay was hilarious. I don't know if you remember this, man. We interviewed him, or I interviewed him on the podcast. The Accidental Evangelist, I think, was the episode. And Jay's Korean, and he says this line, man. He goes, "Do you know why there's Koreans in every country? Because there's a corner, and wherever there's a corner, the Korean has the corner store." And I was just like dying. I'm like, I don't even know what to say to that, bro, because you can't get away with that as a white guy saying that. But
that is rad. There are a lot of Koreans in Canada. Almost every Korean that I'm meeting right now is from Canada. It's kind of rad. Really? Or the northern, I don't know what the history is of immigration to Canada, but there was a lot of Koreans in Wales too. Because of I had a Korean church in one of my churches that actually met. There's 5 pastors doing their PhD because I was in the university town that had the oldest university outside of Oxford and Cambridge. It was called Trinity St. David's. Nobody knows about it, but it was the 3rd oldest university there. And, it would get tons of people because as you probably know, Lloyd Jones is a Presbyterian or a Welsh Calvinist.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, of course.
I probably said it a million times, but also the guy who took the gospel to Korea was Welsh. It was a guy named Robert Jermaine Thomas.
Really?
And, so he's a Welshman. So there's a huge connection between Wales and Korea for the gospel.
I do have a question for you when it comes to laws in the UK. So are there laws for all of the UK, or does each individual country have its own laws?
Both. It's kind of like like America with the states and stuff. But then there's also regulations that, at least before, and I actually don't know how it works now, but the EU used to be able to come in and overstep the government and say, you have to do this if you want to remain within the EU. So classic case of that.
They showed them.
Yeah, they did, really. I mean, as an American, that was crazy to me that a group of other sovereign nations could group together and tell your country what to do.
Yeah.
I could not get my head around that as an American. And what happened was I think it was right before we got there, they used to do night flights. So Heathrow Airport's used to be, I think it still is, busiest airport in the world. Mm. So they used to do night flights all the time because you're shipping people all around the world. So night flights weren't an issue, except for the people who live close to the airport. And so they complained. The government said, tough is the busiest airport in the world. It's one of our chief sources for our economy. And they bypassed and they appealed. These residents appealed to the EU. The EU came in and said, no more night flights. Boom, done.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. Living near Long Beach Airport, that's kind of like, I understand that.
Yeah. Even to the point where on produce, there were EU regulations about how big things like the potatoes and the tomatoes that you took to market could be.
Yeah, as an American, I could not deal with that. I would be like, look, we're about ready to scrap now, EU.
Yeah, because they share an economy.
Yeah.
So all those economic considerations, it was all shared decisions. Crazy. And what was good for one country wasn't always good for another.
I could see that.
And that's where, that's where Britain was like, hey, this is ludicrous. And most people, by the way, did not agree with being in the EU. Let's put it this way. Most people were not for staying within. It was tight, but I was over there when the vote happened, and you would have thought watching the media that the Brexit was the most ludicrous, only idiots thought that, and it turned out to be half the population. Or more than half the population.
What I thought was hilarious is after all of that happened, July 4th of this year, someone put a sign on their store and said, "We'll be closed on July 4th for observation of Brexit 1776.
That's fantastic.
Dude, I was dying when I saw that. Like, that's
yeah,
awesome.
I did a couple years in a row. I threw 4th of July parties and realized at a certain point this was a really bad idea because people are like, "So what is 4th of July?" Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's when
this is awkward.
What is their view on America? Like, not the government, but like the people's view. Are they just like, what do they think of Americans?
They think we're idiots.
Well,
complete and utter morons.
Let's be fair, we are. We got gun nuts like me.
News. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, what are they up to now? What are they saying now? Oh my gosh, Americans are so idiot."
You really can't argue that when you consider that I never thought we could have a worse president than Obama.
Yeah, they think it's hilarious. They grab the
Donald Trump, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, dude!"
So with the recount, back when Bush and Gore were running against each other, and the recount happened, they thought that was the most hilarious thing in the world.
Really? Why was that funny?
To them, they were just like, "Can't you guys get your stuff together, man? What's wrong with you people?" Like, they just thought we were comical, like we were a bunch of morons. Like, you guys couldn't even run an election.
Oh no! What they mean is neither side could properly steal the election because they both tried to steal. One was just better at it than the other.
Yeah, they just think it's funny. You know, they're conservative in most things. You know, they're conservative in government, conservative in business.
See, I always thought my ideal would be like I move to Ireland, where my people are.
Yeah,
ginger.
Yeah,
but now that I'm a gun nut, I don't know because I don't know what the laws of guns are in Ireland. I assume it's like England, but I don't know that because I don't know anything.
Yeah, really. I mean, they just look at us and. We're the entertainment. We're like the court jester for the rest of the world, you know. And it is like you got to admit, like America has become like Jerry Springer show when it comes to politics.
What politics? Drama. Absolutely, yeah.
It's definitely a bunch of drama, and they just grab the popcorn, man.
Yep. Well, we should actually probably get into our topic.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
So before we do that, I know you got a little something.
Yeah, so you know you can actually go into a community center for your church plant. You can go into a school. You can do all the usual, or you can do something totally unusual, but go where the traffic is, and that is thanks to a partnership by Regal Cinemas. And you can go to corporateboxoffice.com / theater. Sorry. THEATRE -church. Again, that's corporateboxoffice.com / theater, THEATRE -church. And what they will do, they've got a staff of former church planners who will help you engineer how to meet Sunday mornings in a movie theater where people are already going to be trafficking, and they'll work you a deal. So head on over there. I'm not going to say it again. Head on over there. And they'll sort you out. That's Regal Cinemas, and that is their church planner program.
Great Scott! It's time for this week's topic.
All right, Mr. Jones.
All righty then.
This is where I get to shut up now and read a book.
No, please talk.
And I'll be back in a half hour.
Please talk. So here's the deal. This happens. I wish it didn't happen as often as it does, but it happens frequently. Pete, do you have a concern?
You know, part of the time I think that this podcast should be video, so that way people can actually see what we're doing to each other. Like,
during the recording of our ad earlier, you know, what were you doing? Oh, you were doing your glasses.
We were both trying to make each other laugh when, like, We're playing a recording of an ad. It's hilarious.
I was pretending to drink water because obviously it's my voice, and I was trying to pretend to be a ventriloquist.
Oh, is that what you were doing? I was like, why is he holding this glass right there? I don't get it.
So, and Pete kept doing his talk with his glasses. Pete uses his glasses now to make himself look smart, which is pretty fun.
Because if you listen to the podcast, you know that it turns out I don't have ocular cancer. According to my eye doctor, I'm just getting old.
He was ready to, like, you know.
I had done my will, everything, man. WebMD said I had about 24 hours to live. And, and yeah, the eye doctor
Mitchell
said, no.
So next time you introduce yourself on the podcast and you go, I'm Pete Mitchell, back from the dead.
You know, I could actually use that. You know how my buddy has had stage 4 cancer like 4 times, and at one point he was given like 2 days to live, and he's lived like 5 or 6 years since then. I could do that same thing. Hey, I was supposed to be dead in 24 hours, at least according to WebMD, but I survived.
That's rad. That's rad.
Sorry, this isn't Smack Talk. Go ahead.
Smack Talk. Done. Okay, church planner. Here's the thing. So you're ready to plant a church and you got your core team, or actually you don't even have your core team. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. What we're really talking about here is your partners, and a church planting partner would be someone like what a Barnabas was to a Paul, or John Mark was to Paul and Barnabas. It's the three amigos. It's the group that you really count on. It's the people that you're going to be church planting with before you even gather your core team. And all too often what happens is people actually leave. I'll get calls from church planners that'll be like, I had a guy in tears this week just saying, this guy counted on him, it was 3 of us and we were going to be planting together, and now, he's taken off, and it hurts. I mean, when the people that you're going to plant with, and you've started this thing, we talked about what to look for in someone that you're going to church plant, what conversations you need to have last week. But what about when you get through all of that and then the person just a few months in goes, maybe they don't tell you, they just stop coming to stuff and they're not really returning your calls, or they just one day say to you, hey, I'm
Ironically,
leaving.
I remember that happening to Josh Boyd in Nevada. He literally moved him and his family from Indiana to Nevada to be part of this guy's church plant. He gets out there, and the church planter goes, oh, I just got offered this pastorate job at this church over here. I'm not planting anymore. It's like, dude, I moved across the country, and now I'm on my own. What's up? So
yeah, absolutely. And I've seen it happen so many times. I don't want to name names, but some of the names that we might throw out there on the podcast, I'm trying to think if it happened to me. It did happen to me actually the night before my launch.
I remember you talking about that.
Yeah. I mean, the
guy who was supposed to take over for you.
Yeah. Like the whole reason I was planning, at that time was he was taking it because I had quit. I was done with ministry, didn't want to do anything. And so I was like, buddy, you got to take this thing. I'll track with you for 6 months, a year. And then I'm heading back to America. And, it turns out, 5 years later, then I'm leaving. But that was multiple church plants, sent out from that church. And, I didn't want to be there. And the night before our launch, talk about getting sucker punched, man. And it was cool. Like he and I worked together. We were window cleaners, and that was fine. It was like, I told him, hey man, I support you in this. It didn't hurt personally. I didn't feel betrayed or rejected. I did feel kind of, well, that's kind of screwed me over a bit, but he said, hey, look, I'll be here for the first few months. Like I'll help team teach. I'll do this. And he did. He kept his word. But really his issue was that he needed to look after his wife. Sometimes you find people like I had a church planner where he moved from the southern part of the states, the Southwest up to the Pacific Northwest. And he had a guy with him who just said, "Hey man, I'm homesick. I don't like it here. I'm going." Boom, back he went. And it has a real demoralizing effect on you as a planter and on those that you're planting with, particularly when everything's kind of new and young. But there is, like I said, it can hurt. Like Paul took it really personally in the New Testament. I mean, he was mad. He was like, we don't know, if Paul, we don't really have his reaction, but what I can say is Paul obviously was super disappointed in John Mark when John Mark turned back, because he would not take John Mark back to the extent that he was willing to lose his number one partner, Barnabas. He was willing, like, look, if John Mark comes, I don't go, because I'm not going to set myself up for that kind of disappointment again. That obviously needled Paul, or really was a kick in the teeth. What are you looking at? See, I'm going to call you on it.
I'm not doing anything.
Why do we even do this?
The difference between you and me is I'm actually paying attention to you.
Nuh-uh. You looked up right then like a schoolboy caught by the teacher.
No,
Mitchell,
I looked up because I'm like, dude,
that?
why is he stopping right in the middle? This is now what I'm looking at.
I was done. I was actually pausing for you. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know, Pete, have you ever experienced this with business or anyone that you've done a start with?
Nope, they do not
You
quit
just
on
fire
me.
them. You're like, get out of here.
I usually want to get rid of them, and they won't leave voluntarily. No, I'm serious. Like, because it's about money, right? Like, they know how much money they're going to make by working with me, and that's why sometimes it's like when it's a bad. That's why last week when we talked about bad partnerships, I'm like, yeah, I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
I learned my lesson on working with them, because they won't quit when they see how much money I'm going to make them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Paul, I can imagine that from that moment on, this is how you learn. I could imagine that Paul probably had really serious talks, because after that he grabbed Silas, right? And you can imagine him saying to Silas, "Now look, don't start this. Don't start this if you're just going to go running home crying for your mama. Like, are you in or are you out?" And he was like, "I'm in." And, Paul heads off. He's like, "But you're not going to leave when things get harder, right? Kind of like Star Wars, you jettison your cargo at the first sign of an Imperial cruiser. That's what people do, right?" You can tell I just watched New Hope with Liberty this week in anticipation of the new movie coming out.
What movie would that be?
Star Wars.
What?
Oh, you mean Last Jedi?
Hey, I know this is back to Smack Talk, but I saw Rob at the movie theater.
Yeah.
Boyd, is that his last name?
Yeah, Rob Boyd, yeah.
And I'm like, I was standing right behind him in the popcorn line. I'm like, Rob. Like, how like when you're like, I think I hear someone calling my name, but I'm not 100%, and you're afraid to like turn around. So I'm just, Rob.
That's rad. What day was that?
Sunday. My day I go to the movies.
He just joined Newbury Church Planning, funny enough.
Yeah, he was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to get Peyton to go with me to see the new Star Wars, but this time we're going to a better theater."
I know. He was like, "You want me to get tickets?" I'm like, "No." It was a really dangerous neighborhood we saw that movie in.
So anyway, sorry. Back to, but he's a church planner. So
yeah.
back to your your rant.
Yeah. So, anyways, so I mean, Paul obviously gave him the tough guy talk, which if you remember back in the beginning days of Refuge Long Beach when we were building our core team, I gave that tough guy talk to our core team, because look, here's the thing. It hurts and it sucks, but it's better to lose them early on. Right? Before things get too advanced. Like I said, the night before your launch is not a good night to get that news. But I'm used to that. I'm used to things going wrong right before my launch. No matter how much you plan, no matter how much things go wrong. But people are the most, really the most unpredictable factor in church planning. They're very fickle. I love what Wesley said, where he said the only thing you can hope from people is to be disappointed.
Yep.
Best thing you can hope from people is to be disappointed. They will disappoint you. And it's okay. You know, the reality is that you weren't dependent on them anyways. And I think that's what Paul kind of probably realized. In fact, I would imagine that Paul becomes a guy that's sending people out all the time in future. So when we look at, you know, I had another call this week where a guy, because, you know, you can look at the reasons why people bail on you. And like, for example, what we just talked about, it's hard. I think at a certain stage, people get to the point where if things don't blow up suddenly like they did for Mark Driscoll back in the day, you know, the golden days of church planning, or it's not an overnight success, people realize this is going to be hard work. And I don't want to put in the time for all this hard work. So I'm out of here. I'm taking off. So that is one of the reasons. The other reason I think is that you got your timing wrong, or the way that you're trying to cultivate that partnership is wrong. So it could be that what you do, like I've watched guys try to build a core team. They immediately go and rent a hall. And I'm like, no, that's going to fail. And everybody says, no, it's good. We got 20 people. And I'm like, it's going to fall apart. Get in a home. Knock that off. Build relationships. You can't run church services while you're developing your core team. Sorry. Right? That's rule number one. But what you're meant to be doing during that time is building relationships, building friendships with those people, investing in them, coaching them, asking them, what's God saying to you, focusing on their development and growth. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to lose them. People, a lot of times when they know that you're pouring into them and investing into them, they're like, hey, I'm here. You know, this guy's pouring. I've never had someone pour into me and invest in me like this. So I'm here for this. People will stick around for that. The other reason is they might be bored. So like I said, on another call this week, someone asked me, Peyton, how do you find, like, and this was the core team, recruiting question, but it applies to your partners as well. Cause your partners in your core team aren't the same, right? Again, this wouldn't be your core team. These would be your partners. The same principle. He said, how do I find the committed people? You know, cause a lot of people just aren't committed. And he was a pastor of an established church. And I said, well, I got a funny theory about that. People that are bored, or people that aren't committed are bored. In other words, they're not excited. The reason they're not committed is because you haven't excited them. So let's look at your gun thing right now.
Well, no, let me give a personal experience about that. I hated church pretty much my whole life because I grew up in it. Right. And we had to be there. Dad being a pastor, we had to be there for every event, early, stay late, no kids. I'm bored. I hated church. When I finally got to college, even though I went to a Christian university, never went to church. I mean, maybe 4 times in, 5 years that I was actively in college. I probably went to church. Going to any mega church that Jamie and I went to when we were first married, I would look for any excuse not to go. If she had an ice skating thing and couldn't go, sweet, man. That means I don't have to go. If I would show up and it's too packed, right? Because it's a mega church, there's nowhere to sit. I'm out, dude. I'm just driving home. I don't care. Never liked church until we got to church planning. All of a sudden, Refuge Long Beach, dude, I'm like, this is fun. Because it came back to, one, you never knew what was going to happen every week. You know, is a pit bull going to show up and bite someone else? Is another knife fight going to break out in the middle of service?
Is the gangbanger going to like take the stage and grab the mic uninvited and talk about, you know, how God talked to him in prison? Remember that guy?
I don't think it was in prison, right? Wasn't it like he was walking down the street?
Well, then I came up, God put on my heart, because everyone knows I'm a little wacky charismatic sometimes. And I go up to him and say, hey, man, I don't know you. And like, he was like, why are you approaching my car? So I had my hands up like, hey man, like I kept a healthy distance. I'm like, hey, I don't know you. This is going to sound weird, but God told me to come over and tell you he loves you and he's thinking about you. And he looks at me, and dude's got like cornrows and metal teeth and stuff. And he had just gotten out of prison like a couple days before that. And he goes, how did you know that? And I go, what? He goes, how did you know I was thinking about God? And I go, I didn't know. I go, but God knew. And I go, look, man, I'm nobody, but there's a church here. I'm one of the guys that leads it. And just want to let you know, man, I don't know what you're going through. We're here for you. And he didn't really want to talk right then. He just goes, oh, okay, well, I'm waiting for someone right now. But he goes, I'll come by.
Yeah, he didn't know how to process it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just said goodbye. Next Sunday, man.
He shows up, and then he goes on stage and starts talking. Dude, I'm telling you, like, you never knew what was going to happen. That's when church got exciting for me. Yeah. That's when I was like, okay, now I understand church is meant to be a full contact sport, not a spectator sport. It is not football. I am not supposed to watch it on TV, sit in the stands. I'm supposed to be involved. And that's where it became fun, man. Yeah. That's where it became fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think evangelism is all about. You know, I mentioned this in Reaching the Unreached, Becoming a Raiders of the Lost Ark. Cha-ching! I
can find all about it at reachingtheunreachedbook.com.
But, you know, nowhere more than Refuge Long Beach, because I learn every church plant, but no more than Refuge Long Beach did I learn that it's all about activating people's gifts. You know, and really seeing that on like amped up to 11, man, with Refuge. And going back to that point that people that aren't committed aren't excited, right? When you get people excited, when they're using their gifts, they get excited, and you will find commitment. Wherever you let people use their gifts, they get excited. And so when I was on this call the other day, I just, you know, I asked them, you know, what someone says to you, I want to be a leader, and comes to you and says, hey, I want to be a leader. What do you do? And they all really struggled with this question, because to them, they're thinking preacher, pastor. And I told them, well, first off, man, like, someone tells me they want to do what I do, I think they're nuts, but I'll invite them everywhere I'm going. Come with me at this conference. Come with me here. Do this with me, you know. People were so Robbie Boyd, first time he ever came to Refuge Long Beach, he and Nancy show up, and I meet him and I invite them to our leaders meeting that was that afternoon. And they're like, what? Like,
sorry.
And they're like, why are you inviting us to, like, they could not get over the fact. And I told them, there's nothing secret goes on here. Our whole church can come to a leaders meeting anytime they want. They'll have fun. We'll eat, we'll talk, we'll pray.
You might see an exorcism.
What's that?
You might see an exorcism.
We did have an one day I invited a demon-possessed person to our leaders meeting. Hey, but what better way to train your leadership team than to have a throwdown right there in your leaders meeting?
Well,
you know
what I still think is funny is the way that you tell the story is Charlie afterwards was like, was that what I think it was? And you're like, yep.
Yep.
I'm so glad I don't go to your leaders meetings.
I'm glad no one was in the building. That's all I can say. Because we decided that day of all days to go meet in the mothership. Yeah. And, that was a crazy one. But you know, when people get awakened in their gift, this is part of my losing my memory thing. This is just happening. It's real. I'm old.
Hey, I understand. I got glasses.
Do you have concerns about that? Pete's got the glasses on again. When he takes them off, he starts to take them off and go, I have a few concerns though.
Because I'm telling you, man, that's how you tell people, look, I'm smart and you need to listen to me.
I think you should tell the story where you learned that tactic.
Didn't I? I thought I told it on last week's podcast.
You didn't.
I'll save the smack talk for another time.
Smack talk next time. Yeah. So anyways, so what to do? I think sometimes the reality is that an old saying, rejection is protection. If somebody drops off of your team, because let's face it, when they're your partner, that means they're going to eventually be most likely on your leadership team. And that person may have had a huge Achilles heel. If they're leaving now, they were going to leave later. How much better? So for me, I encourage people that, hey, that was a good thing. Even though it hurt, even though it sucked, it was a good thing. John Mark left later after they had really bonded, but John Mark had had enough, right? They had already gone to the Isle of Cyprus. They had already been in the lower regions of Turkey. And then by the time, before they get up to Galatia, which is up in the uplands, and they pass to the Taurus mountain range, it's at the foot of the Taurus mountain range that John Mark says, I got to go back home. They had already had malaria on the coast there. That's where Paul talks about you would have pulled your eyes out and given them to me if you were able, because in the summer months in Turkey, southern Turkey along the coast, the mosquitoes are super bad. I know this because I went there. And they carry malaria. And so, up from the north coast of Africa. So what happened was, they all got really, really sick. And what awaited Paul in the Taurus mountain range, they're notorious for, robbers and beatings and muggings and murder. And Paul's at this base of that mountain going, well, guys, we're going to take the gospel through these mountains, but we're probably going to get mugged and beaten within an inch of our life if we make it. And that's just how it was. And John Mark says, no, I think, guys, I feel strangely led to go back to Antioch. And at that point, Paul's like, he feels betrayed. It was an emotional investment. So for me, the sooner the better, right? Don't see it as a bad thing, particularly when, like I said, like with this guy, that I was talking to, for him, even as early on as it is, because it's puzzling, but don't be puzzled. This is something that Paul, the greatest church planter ever lived, went through this. Wesley went through this. All movements of the Holy Spirit, all of the church planting movements in the history, if you read the lives of these leaders, it happened to all of them. Their trusted partners either bailed, lost sight in the vision, got bored, or found it was really hard and didn't have the moxie to see it through. And it's par for the course, church planter. Don't be discouraged. And at that point, it's a good time to kind of redouble and go back and depend on God and pray and ask God, hey, God, is there somebody else? But rejection is protection. Just always see it when someone says no, or I don't want to go forward. It's okay. It's okay. It might hurt a little bit. It might, wreck your fancy plans with your foosball friends, but God usually has something better for you.
I dig it, man. I dig it. It's rough. It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough when you lose people, man.
It is rough. And especially when you're out there, you're putting everything on the line. And it's kind of like that scene in Braveheart where, that guy, he unhorses that guy and the helmet knocks off, and it's Robert the Bruce. Remember that scene?
Yeah.
That look that William Wallace gets on his face, like he just like drops his weapons
kick in the gut. Yeah.
And rips his heart out. Just literally rips his heart out. And of course he comes back later with a Morning Star and beats a guy's head in his sleep, but you can't do that. But we've all been there. We've all been in that place where we're just staggered backwards. Like, I don't even know what to do with this.
Yeah.
But, always in those times, man, it's like Paul, where Paul goes, at first, none came to my defense. All forsook me. All fled, right? Jesus had that with his 12. Paul had that when he went into custody. And I love how Paul goes, but the Lord stood by me, right? Those are the times where in a weird way, God draws near to you. And I remember studying this. And some of the scholars think when he says the Lord stood by me, that Paul had two very powerful experiences where he physically saw Jesus. One was on the Damascus Road. Another one was when he had his vision of the third heaven, as he calls it, where he says whether it was real
or in the body. I don't know. He didn't know if it was a vision or he was actually transported. But when you're talking like that, it's probably not a vision.
Here's the reason why I think he said that, because everyone who's had a near-death experience, like one of my favorite books is Imagine Heaven. And we interviewed that guy on the podcast, and he's, interviewed like 1,000 people who've had near-death experiences. It is like most of them are so overwhelmed by what they see, what they experience, what they feel, what they think, what they know, that it's just like the most real experience they've ever had. But at the same time, it's so different from our physical life that most of them are not able to explain it to other people. I imagine, because I haven't had a near-death experience. You have. You died for 20 minutes on the operating room table. I imagine that it's such a weird experience that you're almost like, was it real? I don't even know how to like explain this, and that's probably what Paul is going through when he calls it third heaven. Cause, like you've talked about, when you start reading that passage, he's not, at first it starts out, I'm not talking about myself. And then he's like, I'm kind of talking about myself here, cause it's like, it's so weird.
He was saying like, I got a little arrogant, and then the Lord had to humble me. And turns out Babylon Bee says that the thorn in Paul's flesh that God used was Last Christmas by Wham. I don't know if you guys saw that article on my Facebook wall.
No.
Scholars reveal that Paul's thorn in the flesh was Wham's Last Christmas. There's also that one where it shows Paul and it says, but the Lord has given me a thorn in my flesh, and it shows SpongeBob chained up next to him going, "Hey, Paul, what are you doing, Paul? What you thinking about right now, Paul?"
I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, so great. But the reality is that point where he says, but the Lord stood by me. I remember reading a scholar saying this may have been another appearance where Jesus was just physically, but then again, it may have been spiritually. Like the Lord he just says, the Lord is with me. I remember a buddy of mine who, his son, committed suicide, and he had to cut his son out of the tree. And he said, when I was there, I was cutting my son down. And he said, and tears were just streaming down my face. He said, I was brokenhearted. But he says, I was also flooded with so much peace. He goes, it was supernatural, flooded with all this peace. And he goes, and it was like the Lord stood by me, that same kind of experience. And I would just say, use this time, guys, where, the arm of flesh has failed you. To really draw near and to find your utter and complete dependence back on God, and to draw near to Christ, who, was alone in his darkest hour. When he said, I need friends right now. I need partners. I need you to stay with me and pray. And we just covered that, a few weeks ago. And yet he all he had was the Lord.
Yeah.
But it says afterwards that the angel came and ministered to him. Let the Lord be for you what that person wasn't. And I hope this is a prophetic word for somebody out there today, because I know it's very unique, but this can happen at any stage in your church plant. Your partners can leave, people can let you down, people can bail on you, people can betray you, and it's always a good word. It's always a relevant word.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, I think we probably need to take the next step here. And that would be, one of the things that I always dislike when I'm in ministry
all the times
is when, my best friend leaves me and it was their responsibility to take care of the books, the IRS compliance, payroll.
Because you don't have air conditioning.
And all of that type of stuff. I really hate it. I mean, I really hate it when they used to take care of like my online giving, and then they send snide remarks to people that cost me more than they could ever imagine. What would you suggest for someone like me who might find themselves in a position like that at some point in their life?
Well, the first thing is I would definitely not sign up with MoGive if I were you, if you hate that. I would definitely say go to PushPay, or Ministry Brands might be another one. But anyways, simplifiedchurch.com, Pete, they would help you out. They would help you do your bookkeeping,
meet all of your IRS compliancy needs, give you end of year donor receipts. That's coming up. Who wants to do that? Who wants to total how much, all 3 people in your church plant gave? No, I'm just teasing. But honestly, you have to report that to the IRS. If you've never done that before, Simplified Church will do that. The sooner you get in there and do that, the better. So head on over to simplifiedchurch.com and tell them that Peyton and Pete sent you.
I love it, man. So, hey, why don't you do our little sign out?
Well, what? That one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh. Hey, this has been Peyton Jones and Pete Mitchell back from the dead, reminding you if you want to reach the ones that nobody's reaching, you need to go where nobody's going and do what nobody's doing.
Is this Pete Mitchell? This is Nigel calling for Pete Mitchell. Pete, it's Nigel. Please call me back. It's important that I speak with you, Pete.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Church Planter Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Peyton Jones. We'd love to hear your comments on this episode of the Church Planter Podcast. Visit us online and let us know what you thought at churchplanterpodcast.com. If you subscribe to us via iTunes and have enjoyed the podcast, leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive in iTunes, the more iTunes will promote us to other church planners who would benefit from this show. This podcast is brought to you by the Church Planter Magazine, which is available in the iTunes newsstand or online via churchplantermagazine.com.